Let me ask you a question. What does your dream restaurant look like? If you could blink your eye and have it all, what would you do different? What would you change? What would your strategy be? I'm going to share what I would do if I owned your restaurant. Let's talk about critical financials. I believe it's so important for you to have a feel for your business because cash is king. Cash is the lifeblood of your business. And you want to be able to know and have a feel for every penny coming in and every penny going out. And if you don't do this yourself, you've got a leader that reports accurately and honestly what those numbers, or KPIs we call them, key performance indicators, what they really tell you. But you got to monitor a couple of things regularly. Okay. So, what are these KPIs? Well, let's start with costing out your menu. Number one most important thing. I see so many restaurants that don't regularly cost their menus out every couple of months, at least once a quarter, because the volatility of markets, prices are up, prices are all over the place. And if you don't know what it costs you to serve every single menu item to any guest, you could be losing money. The menus I look at, they have a profit difference in each category. And I see restaurants losing many, many dollars because this appetizer is a more popular seller than that one that they want to sell, that contributes a more, a bigger profit to the bottom line. I see these restaurants spinning their wheels, right? They're filling their seats and they're busy, but they're like spinning their wheels, shaking their head saying, why isn't my bank account growing? Where are my profits? And more than likely, it's because they haven't costed out the menu and they haven't compared profit of each item in each category against each other. What does it cost to serve any menu item to a guest? That tells you a couple of things. It tells you what the food cost is. It tells you, obviously, besides the food cost, it tells you what the profit for the dish is, and then it gives you the ingredient cost. That's all so important. Now, I built this template. I call it the Menu Profit Accelerator. And I actually coach restaurants. And I have found hundreds of thousands of dollars on menus, both for single independent restaurants and across chains. I mean, I've found at least $885,000 in one small 5-location pizzeria. And I'm just wrapping up a project now with a client, and they lost a couple $100,000 across 5 locations. So it's unbelievable, right? 3 to 5 locations. It's like, wow. So costing out your menu is vitally important. You might be amazed at what you find. And if you're interested, I do this for restaurants. I coach them. Reach out to me, ROGER, restaurantrockstars.com, if I can help you cost out your menu and make sure that you're maximizing profit across the board, okay? So maybe you're filling your seats, maybe you're maximizing profit, but chances are lower profit items are stealing sales from what you really want to sell. All right, that's really, really powerful stuff. Okay. Yeah, if you're intrigued by this, reach out to me. You can do it yourself, the Menu Profit Accelerator. It's in the Restaurant Academy at restaurantrockstars.com, or I really enjoy working with clients. I have a passion for this business. I specialize in menu profit, and it's really fun for me. And I love showing clients the results and telling them what they can do immediately to stop the bleeding, and 2, what's a longer term plan to really increase and boost the profits of your place. Okay. All right. Number 2 KPI, it's inventory. You absolutely have to take inventory. So many restaurants think inventory is placing next week's order. You've heard me say this. No, no, no. It's calculating the value of your food, the value of your beverages on hand at a given point in time. Now, I always recommend strongly that once you start an inventory program, you do it religiously for 4 weeks in a row. Why? Because you want to calculate your food and beverage cost sweet spot. Now, it varies by cuisine, high-end restaurants and steakhouses and seafood places have a higher food cost, and pasta and pizza and Mexican places have a lower food cost. But that's not what it's about. And I'm going to tell you about food costs versus profit in a minute. But you got to know, because the only true way to calculate, the only accurate way to calculate your food and beverage cost is by taking inventory. And those are accurate counts once a week for 4 weeks. And then If you get a sweet spot, say your sweet spot is a 28% food cost, maybe it's a 30, but you get that 4 weeks in a row. And if it's off by a half a point and you get a 29.5, so what? If you've got 4 weeks of consistency in your food and your beverage cost percentages, then and only then do I recommend now you can go to a 30-day inventory period. You don't have to worry about it every week. Okay. But that is a system and it's vital to your success. All right. Yes, you cannot accurately calculate your inventory, your food and beverage costs, unless you take those accurate counts. But let's not get hung up on food cost. Okay, so many restaurants, this industry is obsessed with food cost when, like me, you should be obsessed with profit. You take profit to the bank. You do not take food costs to the bank. Okay, I would rather sell a 40% food cost item all day long than a 28% food cost item that contributes far less profit to the bottom line. That's the second thing that is a needle mover to the bottom line. One is costing out your menu and figuring out what's the most profitable to sell. And that goes part and parcel with the whole profit versus food cost thing that so many restaurants are hung up on. All right. So think about that. It's very, very vital that you know what your food cost is, but also what your profits are. And you watch every penny coming in and every penny going out. Okay, so how do you get a low food cost? So yes, a low food cost is still important, but it's about efficiency. It's about efficient ordering. It's about strong portion controls and really ensuring that every single person making every item does it with consistency to a standard. You have a photograph of the food. You have an ingredient list. You have quantities in ounces, whatever goes on that plate. And you kind of monitor this. And you have other people with check and balances. You monitor this. Portion controls are super, super important to your food cost. What else? Cash cows. All right, what's a cash cow? A cash cow are items on your menu that have high perceived value by your guest. They look at it. It looks great. It smells great. It tastes great. The name of it sounds great, but it's pure profit. It costs you very little to serve that to the guest. That you can charge a lot of money on the menu and it just prints money. And if it becomes the most popular appetizer or dessert or entree, so be it. It prints money and it lowers your food cost. It's a cash cow. Highly profitable, lowers food cost. That's a win-win. Okay. And then lastly, low waste, low spoilage, and no theft. That is also efficiency in your business. Checks and balances, proper procedures, systems. This is what lowers your food cost. Number 3 KPI, track your labor. Okay, labor cost is between, your food cost and your labor cost, two biggest expenses in your restaurant on a weekly and a monthly basis. I used to track it 2 ways, okay? You've got your overall payroll, which is if you pay yourself, you're on there. All of your leadership team is on there. All your wage employees are on there. All the taxes and fees are on there. That's your overall payroll, all right? And then there's also your kitchen payroll, which is the highest labor ever now. Okay. You're paying your kitchen people more than you pay any other person in the place other than perhaps your leadership team or yourself. So you really got to track that. I used to track that every single week because, again, there is a sweet spot. Okay. Maybe your labor cost is at 30% and you're happy with that. And there's a certain amount of business volume in a consistent business also. If you, let's just say you do say $30,000 a week, maybe that's a nice number for you. And you do that pretty regularly, week after week, you got, $28,000 to $30,000 in sales. Wouldn't that be awesome, right? And then there's a certain amount of labor that gives you that 28 or that 30% labor cost. And you hit it a couple of weeks in a row. And then all of a sudden you've got $30,000 in sales and your labor cost just went to 32 or 33%. Now you got a spike. You have to be able to dig in and figure out what caused the spike. And you know that if you've got efficient scheduling and you're cutting people when you don't need them anymore, and you stagger people when you bring them into your restaurant, and you don't have 3 hosts on a Saturday night at 5 o'clock when you don't get busy till 6:30. You get the idea. Staggering, efficient scheduling, cutting people, and being super efficient, and also the checks and balances, that's what equates to a strong labor cost. So the point is if you can do it 1 week and hit that 28 or 30%, and your sales are consistent fairly week to week, why can't you do it every time? If you're not, something's sloppy, something's going wrong. Maybe there's an abuse. Maybe people are forgetting to clock out and the POS system is paying them 5 or 6 extra hours because you didn't catch it when somebody did payroll. Okay. Word to the wise. That happens. All right. Find your sweet spot and stay there. Now that you've done all this, number 4 is prime cost. Somewhat misunderstood. Not everyone tracks prime cost. Not everyone knows what it is. Prime cost is the sum total of your food, beverage, and labor expressed as a percentage. Okay, so literally you add your food and beverage cost percentages together. You divide by 2 because it's an average. And then you add your labor cost to that. And that gives you a percentage as well. Now, the benchmark, if you're doing really well and if you're making money in your business, the industry says that 50 to 55% is an ideal prime cost. Now, what does that mean? That means for every $1 of sales, 50 to 55 cents goes to food, beverages, and labor. And what does that leave? That leaves 45 or 50 cents remaining to pay all the other expenses in your restaurant. Everything from the lease on the property, to the dumpster in the parking lot and the linens on the tables and the flowers if you've got them and the landscaping and the snow plowing and the heat and oil and the utilities. And it goes on and on. Okay, so tracking prime cost is super important and staying in that sweet spot also. That is vital. Okay, finally, KPI number 5 is the daily break even. Do you know what it costs to open your doors any given day, whether you serve 5 guests or 500 guests? It's a number, and it depends on the size of your place and the number of seats, okay? It might be $1,000 a day to open the doors. Or it might be $10,000 if you got a huge restaurant, okay? But there is a sweet spot there too. And it's calculated. Now, it's not complicated, but you don't have to be an accountant to figure this out. But maybe your office manager, your accountant is the person you ask. But you do have invoices that come in every single week, some by the month, some by the week, some, you get the idea. You put together a list of all of your invoices. All right. And you calculate 2 different ways, your fixed costs and your variable costs. Not complicated, but I'll explain. A fixed cost is something that you pay whether you're open 7 days a week or the business is closed. Things like the lease, right? You got to pay your lease, whether you're open 6 days a week, 7 days a week, you're closed entirely. It's like you owe your landlord that rent, don't you? The dumpster in the parking lot, it doesn't care how many days or how many hours you're open. You got to pay a couple $100 for every dumpster you have every single month to sit in that parking lot. Those are just examples of fixed costs. They don't change regardless of how many days or hours you're open. Variable costs do. Your cost of goods, your labor, your utilities, all of these things go up or down based on how many days and hours you're open. So once you've got a list of your fixed costs, whether they come in by the week or the month, and your variable costs, you put them together on a monthly basis and then you divide by 30, and that is your daily break even. Now, the point I'm making here is a lot of restaurants don't know if they should ever close. They don't want to close because consistency is so important. Oh, my customers will kill me if they show up on a Monday and I'm closed. Well, that's communication, folks. But let's just say your daily break even is $1,000 a day. And let's just say every Monday you ring $600, $800, $750. You're losing money every single Monday because your break even is $1,000. But if you close that day, what a lot of restaurants don't realize is you will lose less money by closing and giving your team the day off than you will by actually being open and serving 5 or 10 people while everyone's standing around wondering why I'm not making any money and I'm bored. Okay, so think about it. But there's a solution here too. I always recommend that you do a special promotion on a slow night. You drive business. You call it a locals night. You bring in an inexpensive entertainer, an acoustic musician that plays music, or you do a karaoke night or whatever it is. Or if you got a Mexican place, it's Taco Tuesday. You get the idea. And you try that and you promote that. And chances are you're going to make more money than your break even by bringing that in. But if you can't, close. You'll lose less money by closing. Okay. Are you still with me? This is what I did for all my restaurants. It's called a system. All of these things are little systems that make your restaurant dialed like a Swiss watch. What if your POS did more than ring up orders? What if it actually ran your restaurant? Touch Bistro is an all in one cloud based POS and restaurant management system designed exclusively for restaurants. They help you run smarter, faster, and more profitably. Touch Bistro brings front of house, back of house, and guest engagement into one easy to use platform. From patented bill splitting and real time inventory to labor, profit tracking, loyalty, online ordering, and reservations, it's all connected. Touch Bistro is built for restaurants and built to perform. Check out touchbistro.com/restaurant rockstars. Now, my audience can get up to $6,500 US or $5,400 Canadian off your hardware. Terms and conditions apply. Speak to a Touch Bistro representative for details. Let me ask you a question. Can you leave your restaurant for any amount of time? Can you leave for a day? Can you leave for a week? Can you leave for 2 weeks or more? And will your staff have your back? Will your staff run the place as if they own the place because they're incentivized, because they're trustworthy, because they have great judgment, because they don't want to let you down? Ask yourself that question. Do they have your back? That is a system. Okay, last. Marketing. Okay, marketing is also the lifeblood of your business. Now, let me ask, are you running a restaurant or are you running a brand? Do you have a powerful brand? Does it have a vibe? Do you have loyal, regular, raving fans? Okay. Do you draw people in just because of your place? Is it unique and special and different? Does it stand apart from your competitors? Well, that's the difference. Don't run a restaurant, build a brand. And that goes back to the logo and the colors and the fonts and the signage and the lighting on the building and anything that catches people's attention. And what I didn't mention were hooks. Hooks are marketing tools. A hook is something unique, special, or different about your restaurant in how you do business, or it's a special menu item or items. It's the things that your competitors don't do. It's the things that, get people to pull out their phones and take pictures and spread it on social media. And that is free marketing, and that is super powerful. You can't have too much of that. You can't have too many hooks. You can't have too many raving fans. An army of regulars, okay? And these people are influencers. You know what an influencer is. These are the people that love your place so much they tell everybody, you got to go to that place. That's my place. I don't go anywhere else. That's powerful stuff, okay? So stop running a restaurant, build a powerful brand. All right. I've talked about this before. And whether you have a coffee shop or if you have a bar and you serve draft beer. Another huge needle mover is a mug club. You've seen these things. You've gone into sports bars and you see these mugs hanging and they catch attention and you see them and it's like, and then you see people in the bar drinking out of that mug, whether it's coffee or draft beer. You get the idea. And it's this exclusive thing that has cachet. It's got its own vibe to it. And what a lot of people don't know is you sell memberships to these, and it's an exclusive membership that makes your regulars feel really VIP. But you don't just want your regulars to feel that way. You want to sell them to any guest so that they become regulars. All right, so a mug club is a super powerful marketing tool. You sell memberships and that brings in a lot of cash. And you can sell a membership for $50 a year. You can sell it for $100 a year. If you got a really big bar and a really powerful place, maybe even more money. Okay, so the membership cash is nice. But what you may not realize is suddenly people are in your place more often. They're spending more money. Okay, if you've got retail merchandise, that's another brand builder. They're buying your merch, your t-shirts, your hats. They're evangelists again for your business. They're drinking the mugs. And then your other new guests that come in the door see these people having a great time and drinking the mugs, and it sells itself. So memberships, you can make tens of thousands of dollars selling mug memberships that renew annually every year. And then the spending and the visits just go up. So that is just super powerful. It's a loyalty builder. All right. That's a needle mover. All right. Social media, we talked about that. Not everybody knows what to post, when to post, what platforms to post on, how often to post. That's kind of a science unto itself. But whether you know it or you don't know it, I guarantee you there are people in your restaurant, your team members that are on social media all the time and they're creative. Maybe they can create videos. Maybe they just take interesting photos of guests having a great time. Maybe they just take pictures of the food and the vibe, but you pick one person that's really into it and you incentivize them to be your social media marketing guru. All right. And that drives business. And that's also super, super powerful. Okay. And social media, not only is it cost effective, but your team members can become influencers as well. All right. You're growing your fan base. Last, don't ever spend any money on what I call marketing experiments. I've said this before as well. It's like, this is the only business I know where people show up at your back door. They don't knock. They just walk in. They walk through your kitchen. Oh, can I see the owner? Can I see the manager? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, wow. And then the phone rings off the hook all day. People are trying to sell you things you think you don't need. But every once in a while, if they got a good sort of a catchy story, you might listen and maybe you'll be sucked into a radio commercial that costs you thousands of dollars because it sounds good. Oh, I've never done radio before. And the guy says, yeah, we'll custom craft this radio thing and blah, blah, blah. We'll put you on the radio. Well, unless everybody walks through the door and says, hey, I heard you on the radio and that's what brought me in. It's an experiment. It's not trackable. So make sure that every dollar you spend has a return on investment, one, and two, you know where the business is coming from. Where are your guests coming from? Visibility is so important. You want to stand apart from all the other restaurants on your street, in your town, in your city, whatever. The lighting, signage, and colors, everything that you can think of to make your place pop. When was the last time you walked out the front door of your place and you stepped across the street or you went out into the parking lot and you looked at it from a fresh perspective? And I mean a really fresh perspective. If you were a guest in your own restaurant, you'd never been there before for the very first time, what do you see? What can you change? Now, my restaurants always had really dynamic lights all over them. We had signage that was so important, but we always had a changeable letter sign. And I'll tell you what that means. We had lots of drive-by traffic. And you know, people love to read signs, and catchy slogans and messages really drove business for us. Now, I'm a classic rock guy and I love classic rock music. So a lot of our messages were, you know, lyrics from rock songs like "It's a Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll." You know that one. It's by AC/DC. Or "Dine and Drink like a rock star." That was on one of the signs. And I'll never forget this one. A little cheeky, but it's by Queen. "We are the champions, no time for losers, because we are the champions of the world." That was on one of my signs once. And all these things attracted attention and they drove business in. And that was the foundation of brand building. Okay. It's all about building a brand and not running a restaurant. Okay. Next, I would recruit people. I would not hire them. There is a huge difference between recruiting and hiring. Okay. Recruiting, you're already getting someone else's great player, someone with a proven track record, a known entity versus somebody else's C player. You know, I've talked about this all the time. Make sure you have A players, mentor and shadow these newbies. Okay, that was hugely successful for us. And I always had at least two different A players work with a new team member. Why? Because their approach is different, but there's best practices that a new person can get from different people. So I never let anyone have a shift unless they spent at least two shifts with two other people. And the more, the better. Okay. And that only helped them develop their own style. But again, the best practices of those great A players, showing them the ropes makes all the difference. Okay. That's what it's about. Best practices. Now, next, what do? You have to set clear expectations so that your team members know and understand their job inside and out, okay? And the role that they're going to play in your company. This is super important also. Where does this come from? A very accurate and complete career description. You've heard me talk about career descriptions before versus a job description. I never wanted my people to think of What they did is just a job. I wanted longevity. I wanted a lower turnover, which is huge in this business. I wanted them to think that there was a future. I owned multiple restaurants. They can move up to a different position, perhaps be a leader in another restaurant, take on additional responsibility. It was always about setting clear expectations through a career description. Now, what should they bring to the table? Okay, my career description had three different really important points to it. Number one, what should you expect a new team member to bring to the table every day with or without training? Okay. And it varies by position. But of course, you want initiative, you want reliability, you want team players, you want people that work well with others, make friends with guests, care about people in hospitality. These are just some of the things you want them to bring to the table, but you make your own list. The main body of my career description, I've talked about it a lot, is literally primary responsibilities. Every position in your restaurant has different responsibilities. And then the last part is, where can they go if they do a stellar, an amazing job with their primary responsibilities? What can they do next? Sometimes it's a promotion. Sometimes it's just a new responsibility that they're incentivized to do. And don't forget my approach for accountability, okay? Accountability is so important. One, you got to set the expectation, but two, you got to hold people accountable. And how do you do that? Well, in every career description, there's a blank line next to every primary responsibility. So when you hire someone, or if you start this for the very first time, I should say if you recruit someone, or if you've got existing team members and you sit down with them, you give them a copy of the career description and you read line by line what your expectations are for them to be successful in that job, each primary responsibility. Next to that is a blank line. Why? There's the accountability. You ask them two questions. Do you understand what I expect in this, responsibility for you to be successful? And two, do you promise that you're going to do it to the best of your ability every shift, every day? And if they say yes, of course they're going to say yes. And maybe a little training is involved first before they understand those gigs, but you understand. They initial the line, the blank line. When they say, yes, I understand, and yes, I'll do it. And now you've got accountability because, again, when you notice something, going sideways, maybe they worked out great for the first week, or the first couple of weeks, and then you see something start to slide. That's when you can call them in private into your office or a private space and simply say, instead of being the boss and saying, get out there and do it the right way, ask them, you said you could do this. You promised you'd do it to the best of your ability, and I'm seeing you do that. What will you do? What can you do to get back on track to meet that performance standard? There's the accountability. And then, of course, you need performance reviews. That's very important. Every 6 months, a performance review. And you don't have to do it all yourself if you're the owner or the GM. If you've got other team leaders, give them that responsibility to conduct these performance reviews. And it's super simple because now that you've got these primary responsibilities on a career description, you know what you expect in those positions. And you take copious notes throughout that 6-month period. Every time they do something great, or if they fall short in a certain way, document it. And that way, it's very easy to open their file or look on your computer and you'll know exactly what to say. And then you just go line by line and you give them a grade and you give them an overall grade on their performance based on those responsibilities. Okay? Expectations, accountability through career descriptions and performance reviews. Works like a charm. It's very important. It's foundational. Okay. Don't forget recognition and rewards programs. Now, I work with a lot of restaurants and I still see that employee of the month or the special parking space. Now, that's a little old and tired in my book. So ditch those. Get creative. Come up with your own recognition and rewards program and do it weekly just to keep the team on point, just to keep that team spirit and culture going strong. Okay. That is really a powerful thing. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be a simple meeting where you gather everybody together and you simply recognize one person for going above and beyond, taking initiative, solving a guest problem, or helping a team member, whatever it is. Just make sure it's relevant. And then give them an incentive. It can be a gift card for gas at the, convenience store. It can be a movie ticket or 2 movie tickets. It could be $20 bills and a can of Red Bull. That's what we did. We called it difference dollars, but that was super important every single week. And the team loved it. And everybody gathered round and it built team spirit. Okay. So don't forget recognition and rewards. Okay. Now, cross training. Okay. When was the last time you cross trained someone in a different gig? Maybe it happens, but not every single person in every restaurant is trained in more than one position. And why wouldn't they be? Now, some restaurants say, oh, that costs a lot. That's extra payroll. That's training time. To me, it was always an investment. It was a plan B. Okay. In case somebody got hit by a bus, I always had people that could cross train and know different positions and perform it competently. Think about it. It's an investment, not a cost. Wouldn't it be cool if every person in your place could do more than one gig competently? So we covered a lot of ground today, okay? We talked about recruiting, we talked about leadership, we talked about accountability, we talked about getting the most from your people and recognition and rewards. We talked about the key performance indicators and all those vital financial systems. And we talked about marketing. But the most important thing, to have an exit strategy, to have a business that is systemized, wouldn't it be amazing if you could train your team to run your business for you? Then you could walk away for a day or a week or amount of time, and you could do other things. You could spend more time with your family. You could start another business. You could open another location. You could have the big picture at 30,000 feet. Well, there's a way to do that. All right. The Restaurant Academy is a series of systems. Everything I talked about today, from recruiting and leadership and hiring and KPIs and the marketing and the finances and you name it, it's in there. And you can assign any lesson to any team member and track their progress and give them an incentive for improving your business. And it's all at restaurantrockstars.com. Okay. Teach them to run your business. Teach them to learn your business. That's peace of mind. Okay. That's your exit strategy. All right. I already told you that I personally coach restaurants. So if any of this intrigues you, if I can help your business in any way, reach out to me, ROGER at restaurantrockstars.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.